welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Entertainment Network. I am your host, Sarah. Happy to be with you on this Tuesday in March. It's our second Tuesday, at least for the episode in March. I guess it's the second Tuesday as well, but second Tuesday episode for an interview for March. Hope you're having a great week. I hope you had a good weekend. Ours was... It was nice. It was a little chaotic. So have some friends in from the US and they looked in Portugal in March is supposed to be lovely, which it often is, except when they got here, and it has done nothing but rain since they got here. So we have a storm that even has a name. Jana has been giving us lots and lots of rain, which we need. But when you have come to hang out on the beach and wear shorts and enjoy being in warm, lovely weather, and then it just dumps torrential amounts of rain, it's maybe not your favorite thing. I am glad to get the rain, but there have been a couple of times when I have taken the dogs out and it's been like raining a little bit, which is fine, and not raining hard, so I take them out, and then like especially one night it was about midnight and I took them out, and we got out there, just light sprinkling, no problem, and then it just dumped. We were all completely soaked in about 10 seconds, and so then we all got to go to bed wet. So we need the rain. I'm appreciative of the rain, but I do understand that it's not the greatest for people's holidays, so I feel bad for our friends who are visiting, but still nice to see them. Still getting over... You can hear my throat's a little scratchy, getting over some, my usual allergies, sinus, didn't go into full-on bronchitis, but just, if you've been with the podcast any length of time, I sound like this periodically, and we're there again. So anyway, I am happy to be with you on this Tuesday, and you know what? I didn't remember the way I always start my episodes. I completely got into rain. I guess I was so excited about Jana and I had to share about her. At any rate, I usually say at the beginning of an episode, please like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform you are watching or listening to this episode on. It really helps the algorithm, gets the podcast out to more listeners and watchers and readers such as yourselves. If you would like to help in another way, you can go to gsmcpodcast.info. There you can leave a tip or a donation. That also helps the not only this podcast, but the network as a whole. All of that support is greatly appreciated. While you're there, if you'd like to leave a question or a comment, I'm happy to engage with those. Love hearing from you. We'll answer any questions the episode after I receive those questions. So please drop me a line and let me know what you're thinking, or if you have any questions. But if you do want to help in a monetary fashion, that link is playing next to me, gsmcpodcast.info. You also see it scrolling throughout the episode at the bottom of that blue and white box there. And as I always say, any support you give the podcast, no matter what form that support takes, is always greatly appreciated. And I am grateful for you, however long you've been with me. If this is your first episode, welcome. If you've been with me from the beginning, great. Somewhere in the middle, also good. Just thank you for being here, no matter how many times you have been here and will continue to be here. Appreciated. So today I have a book like I have not had on the podcast before, which is exciting. I'm speaking with author Kimberly McLeod, and let me bring up this week's book so I can give you the full title as I give you this description, because it is the ultimate book of would you rather questions. 1001 family-friendly challenges for kids, teens, and adults. And the description of that book is as follows. Spark imagination and conversation with 1001 wild, silly, and thought-provoking decisions. Get ready for hours of fun pondering impossible choices with this ultimate collection of knee-slapping, exciting, and thought-provoking questions. There are no wrong answers, so you can debate mind-boggling scenarios all day long. With handy categories like ew, make-believe, animals, food, and more, you can stick to a section everyone enjoys or skip around and mix it up. These 1001 epic questions are the perfect break from devices that allows you to learn more about your family and friends, especially on car rides, during long waits, at the dinner table, and more. Are you a fan of would you rather questions? They can be really fun. They can be really challenging. Sometimes it's really easy to do it. They would you rather X or Y, and immediately X, yes, no problem. But then sometimes they're either both so good or they're both so bad that it's hard to decide. And those are they can be fun, they can be challenging, they can be tricky because you have to decide which is the better one. Which one sounds even, if they're both good, you have to decide which one is the best. If they're both bad, you have to decide kind of on the lesser of two evils, right? Oh, they're both terrible. I don't want to do either. I think Kimberly mentions something in the EU section. There's like, would you rather eat a worm or eat dirty snow? I guess it depends on what the snow is dirty with. Is it just dirt? Is it yellow snow? This is where you have to start thinking which is better. And I, of course, always think of the book How to Eat Fried Worms, which was one of my favorite books growing up, but that does not mean I want to eat a worm. I'm just going to throw that out there. So let's go ahead and go to that conversation with Kimberly. Again, it's the ultimate guide to would you rather questions, 1001. And then I don't have it right directly in front of me, so I can't give you the entire title, but you heard it there and you saw the cover, and you'll find it if you look up the ultimate guide to would you rather questions. Let's go to that conversation with Kimberly. Hello, Kimberly, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk about your book, which is not we haven't had this kind of a book on the podcast before, so this is fun. Before we do
Yeah.
that, though, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, so that my listeners can get to know you a bit.
Yeah. So my name is Kimberly McLeod, and I'm the creator behind The Best Ideas for Kids. I have a website, and it's thebestideasforkids.com. I've written two craft books. One is called Fun and Easy Crafting with Recycled Materials, and the second one is Cut and Color Crafts for Kids. And my third book, which just came out in the fall, is the ultimate book of Would You Rather questions. So I do lots of crafts, lots of activities, science experiments, basically anything to keep your kids busy and hopefully off screens. I'm your go-to girl, and that's what I do, spending my time. Yeah,
Fun. So you get to work and play at the same time a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Lots of cutting paper and gluing during my day.
Nothing wrong with that. I enjoy a good coloring session sometimes. Um, so it's the ultimate book of would you rather questions, and it's 1001 family friendly challenges for kids. So that's the full name of the book. I just wanted to make sure I got the whole thing in there.
Yep.
What inspired you to sit down and try to come up with 1001 different would you rather questions?
Yeah, so I have a lot of would you rather questions on my website, and they've been really popular. People love them. My kids who are 8 and 11 absolutely love them. And if you haven't played Would You Rather with your kids, then I highly recommend it. And obviously picking up the book to get lots of ideas. But I have a lot on my website also. And just with some of the craft books that I've published, I noticed there was some books, would you rather books available on Amazon also. And I thought, some of them were 300 questions, 250 questions. I picked up a couple of them and looked through them. And I just thought, I think I can make like your go-to book, the ultimate book with the most questions, and have everything in one place that really you could just take with you on the go, in the car, to the restaurant. And, kids aren't going to get bored because there's so many questions in here. And that was just really the inspiration. I just thought, "Yeah, I think I can make this and make it the best one available." So.
And how long did it take you to come up with 1001 different would you rather questions?
So that's actually a funny story. At first, I knew it was going to be a challenging task because it's a lot of questions. But I didn't know how challenging until I actually sat down and started working on it. And I would say from 0 to 500, it was manageable. But then after I hit that 500 mark, I was like, I've run out of ideas. Like, what other things can I ask? I still have like, half the book to go. But then I started reaching out to family and my kids and like, talking to people and like, what are some other categories I can, include in my book? And my mom actually came up with a good category. She had an idea to include a clothing category. So then, that spawned a whole bunch of new questions. And then I just kind of kept trying to think that way as I went along. Okay, what other angles or categories have I not tackled yet? How do I put a spin on maybe some of the things I've already put in the book? Because I really wanted everything to feel very different and not repetitive too. So as you're going through the book, you won't feel like you're asking the same question over and over. But yeah, the second 500 questions were a challenge and did take me a lot longer than the first.
I would think so. Did you start out knowing you wanted to do different categories, or did that kind of evolve as you were trying to come up with all the questions?
I did start, like, I'm a very organized person, so I did start kind of just naturally categorizing them so I could, keep my thoughts straight on what types of questions to ask. But then as it evolved, I kind of developed each category and what made sense and which question would fit into each category. And some could technically fit into multiple, but then I had to choose which one makes the most sense or which one feels like it would be the best category for this specific question.
Yeah. If you've been with me for a while, then you probably already know the answer to this, that I would way overthink which category. If there's more than one category that works for a question, I would probably overthink it. And that's actually part of my issue with would you rather questions in general, is that I overthink everything. And my husband loves would you rather questions, and I will, like, he'll have the answer right away, and I will hem and haw and think and overthink ad nauseum. But we are going to take our first break of this episode. When we come back, we'll be talking about glitter, so stick around for that. But as we go to break, I'm going to give you a would you rather question from the book. So since next week is St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to take this from the holiday section of the book, and the question is, would you rather dress like an elf or a leprechaun? Think about that over the break. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with Kimberly McLeod. Your second quick reminder that if you want to help the podcast in a monetary fashion, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.info. You can leave a tip or a donation. I always say tip or a donation. Don't really know the difference. Tip, donation, same thing. Donation or tip. At any rate, it helps not only this podcast, but the network as a whole. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.info if you would like to help the podcast and the network in a monetary fashion. So before the break, I asked, would you rather dress as a leprechaun or an elf? What did you decide? I'm thinking elf. But, I mean, either one, this is one of those where I'd be okay with either, especially if it was a dress-up occasion. But with elf, it's much more complicated than that, because when I think about the millions, hyperbole, but the many, many, many options for Christmas movies that are out there and the different portrayals of elves, there is not one set outfit for elves at the North Pole. And I guess if you really, this was in the holiday section, so I went with Santa's elves. We could go with Lord of the Ring elves. We could go with all kinds of elves, right? There's just so many choices. So I'm going to go with elf because it gives me more options. Although, considering what I said about overthinking, I should probably go with leprechaun because they seem to tend to be a little more specific in their outfits, and I wouldn't have so many choices. Whatever. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Kimberly. That you've written craft books makes sense. I didn't do a scientific study, but it felt like the word glitter was used maybe more than any other word in the book throughout. Now, do you hate glitter or do you love glitter?
I think, in the Would You Rather book,
Yeah.
I think people have a love-hate relationship with glitter. And so I think I probably pulled on that to, it's one of those very polar opposite type things. You either really love glitter or you hate glitter. And so from a Would You Rather question perspective, it's a good one because everyone might have a different take or response in relation to glitter. Personally, I don't mind glitter, but I'm very much now always looking for eco-friendly glitter. I think that's what's top of mind for me when I use glitter nowadays. But the mess, I'm totally fine with.
That's good. What do people call it? The syphilis of the craft world. Wrong.
I haven't heard that one.
I think there's memes. Yeah, I don't think of it as that, but it doesn't go away sometimes. Like once you have glitter, you're gonna find glitter in a lot of places. But the one that comes to mind is I think it was something like, would you rather walk across Legos or jump on a trampoline full of glitter?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. What would you rather do? I think I would probably jump on the trampoline of glitter. I don't know. Walking on Legos is so painful.
I'm gonna go with glitter. I mean, I'm gonna regret it, but not as much as the pain of the Legos.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, I just, in terms of the questions, I love how that one stuck out to you because it's not something, typically someone would maybe think of off the fly. My kids are great of coming up with their own would you rather questions, but sometimes you just kind of lose inspiration. And so it's fun to have a book you can just pick up and it be thought provoking. You don't have to really think about the actual question. You can just ask it and then discuss it.
Yeah, and then it might trigger, it might lead to other questions that you do come up with on your own. Did you, I would assume that you tested them with your own kids. Did you have family and friends kind of go through and weigh in on some of the questions?
So my family got a lot of would you rather questions while the book was in the making. My kids actually helped come up with a few too. My son had a few good ones. My daughter had some really good inspiration for a few too. And they were definitely the test subjects of a lot of them. A lot got cut that they said were not good. A lot got, added back in that I was, on the fence of. So it was a whole month of, as I was going through that editing process of constantly asking, would you rather questions in this house?
Did you ever get the mom? No more would you rather questions?
I think the kids actually enjoyed it, but I think my husband near the end was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Because they're divided into a lot of different categories. Did you have a favorite category or a category that you thought was the most fun for you to write the questions in?
Yeah, I would say probably two are my favorite, the make-believe category. So that's where you really just, you bring in the mermaids, the unicorns, the everything make-believe, all the superhero powers. I think that one's it was really fun to write, but it's also a really fun category for kids because who doesn't love imagining, if you could have super strength or the ability to breathe underwater.
Yeah.
And then the ew category is another fun one. I was actually hesitant about putting that one in because I thought, is it going to be too gross and not maybe fit with the rest of the book? But I've been told by so many people that they love this category. I don't know. I think maybe people just love thinking of gross situations, specifically kids.
Yeah.
So, things like, would you rather eat dirty snow or a worm? Stuff like get stung by a bee or have a bird poop on your head. It's if you don't like gross things, you might want to avoid that category. If you do like talking about silly, gross things, then it could be a really fun one too.
Which is also why it's nice that they are in categories. You can just skip it all together. You're not going to have some random booger question in the middle of, the rest of them that's going to make you.
Exactly. And that's another reason why I loved categorizing them too.
Yeah. So I didn't count anything. Are the categories pretty even in terms of the number that are in there, or was it just kind of how many you came up with in each category?
Yeah, they're not a set number per category. Some are larger than others, and it really just came down to how many I could think of within each one.
Yeah.
So yeah, and some categories, like make believe, you could really go on a lot because you could make up a lot of situations, whereas things like clothing, you kind of run out of clothing items to, give scenarios about. At least I did.
Right. Yeah. Clothing.
Yeah.
There's like body parts. Would you rather have, I think, giant hands or giant feet, or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I was laughing because I tend to read on my phone because I get the audio, or not the audio, the digital copies of the books. And so I just took a screenshot of one of the pages to send to a friend of mine to say, this is the book that I'm reading this week for the podcast. And she has a teenage son, and so I just sent it to her, and she took the screenshot and edited it and went through and answered all the questions for me. It was really cute.
I love that. And when I've shared a couple pages from the book, and people have done that too. And yeah, there's these little like circle tick boxes. So
Yeah.
if you want, kids can actually go through and tick off each one. They don't have to, but it's fun if they want to go through and put their answer in. But as I was sharing some of the pages, people did that, and I thought that was fun. They just couldn't resist like actually going through and answering them, which is so much fun. But to that point, my website is mostly geared to kids, which is like preschool age to, I would say, middle school age range. But I do have some teen ideas. And this book, the way I crafted it and made the questions, it really was made so that all ages would enjoy it. So even adults, I had some couples say they're going to buy it for date night and to use just to ask, for conversation starters together as a couple. Teens would still absolutely love it. So it's an all ages book. It's not just for kids. Obviously, kids will enjoy it and have fun, but as a family too, it's really fun to use whether you're in the car or at dinner. A lot of parents have said they love just asking would you rather questions at dinner because it gets their kids talking,
Mm-hmm.
which is sometimes hard to do. How was your day? Well, what about this? And then they start talking. You start asking them, well, why'd you choose that question? And it's a really fun family activity too.
Yeah. Do you have any, I would imagine that it would get kids talking in general, but do you have any tips or suggestions for follow-up conversation starters? Because sometimes you get the kids in the monosyllabic stage of life where they just, it's very hard to get them to answer in full sentences. So do you have any tips for creating more conversation around some of the questions?
Yeah, I mean, with my kids, I think when you ask them open-ended questions, they tend to answer a little bit more, right? So, tell me what was your favorite part of the day and why? And, it gives them a bit more opportunity to discuss and talk to you about it. So, when you're going through these questions, definitely ask them follow-up questions, ask them their reasoning. My kids especially love telling you why they chose the answer that they chose. And sometimes that can lead to other conversations. There's a whole school section too. So if you want to know more about school and how they feel about school, you could go through the school section. Food, there's yeah, just lots of fun categories. If you're interested in learning just more about them as a person, I think would you rather questions can do that.
Yeah. think this is a good way to engage in conversation, gives you some different openings than just, like she said, asking open-ended questions, or not asking open-ended questions. My goodness, I can't talk today. Asking yes or no questions, which are going to give you a yes or no response. I know my husband, I mentioned before, loves would you rather questions and loves the conversation that comes after them. He will analyze and pick apart and figure out the right answer, and just go into depth about why he will choose certain things. And actually, I'm really excited about this book because he likes to play these types of games on road trips, and he is really good. He'll, would you rather XYZ, blah blah blah, and then he's like, your turn, and it takes me, I swear, it feels like 45 minutes to come up with a question. I don't know, I just go blank. So now I've got the book on my phone and I can look up and I will have answers for when we play Would You Rather. So yes, is that slightly selfish of me? It is, but I'm okay with that. As we go to our next break, here is your next Would You Rather question. This one is from the you section of the book, and it is, would you rather walk through a giant spider's nest or step barefoot on cockroaches? So you contemplate that. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with Kimberly McLeod. We're talking, of course, about her ultimate guide to Would You Rather questions. Before the break, I asked you one, and that was, would you rather walk through a giant spider's nest or step barefoot on cockroaches? And when I first read the question, I was thinking spider web, but no, spider nest. And I'm thinking potentially thousands, hundreds to thousands of baby spiders, bigger spiders. Is that worse or better than stepping barefoot on cockroaches? And I think I'm going to choose stepping barefoot on cockroaches because that would be gross, but at least it would happen and it would just be contained to the bottom of my foot and I would be grossed out, but then it would be over. The spiders would be everywhere. They'd be in my hair, they'd be in my clothes. And then I would feel them crawling on me forever. So that's where I went with that one. What about you? Let me know in the comments which way you went with this question. And we're going to return to the conversation with Kimberly. There's questions, and you say this a little bit in the, I think in the intro to the book, there's questions that are very easy to answer, questions that, you don't want either of the options, questions that you want both of the options. Do you have a favorite to write of those three choices?
I think the more fun questions to write were the ones that were difficult to answer. So either both answers are really good and hard to choose, or both are really bad and hard to choose. I think those were more fun to think of because you really had to come up with equal options, right? Which isn't always easy. If the question is, would you rather spend the day outside on a warm, sunny day or on a cold, frigid day? That's an easy one to answer. There's not a lot of fun in that. So I think it was more challenging and fun to come up with questions that would be challenging to answer, and potentially not everyone would have the same answer too, which was a goal of mine. You don't want everyone saying the same thing, or the questions it's just not as interesting.
Right. What do you hope that readers are going to take away from the book overall?
Just to have fun with their family, bonding time, engaging with their kids. If you're looking for, trying to limit screen time, like that's my biggest challenge as a parent today is, how do I get my kids to be engaged while they're off screens? Because the screens are so addicting nowadays that when they're off screens, they're constantly thinking of when can we get back on screens? So when they're off, I just want to be able to engage them in other ways and have them do things independently too. And I think that my hope is that this book is something that kids can do independently if they want to, if parents want to. They can absolutely go through and check off their favorite answers to each question. Or it can be one of those family activities. We all love games. We all love playing games with family. And I hope that people take this away and have a lot of fun with their family.
Yeah. What is your background? What led you to doing the craft books and this book? Was it mainly your kids, or do you have, a specific background education in this area?
Yeah, so I actually went to school for business, math, and marketing, and I spent some time in the marketing world. And I've always loved writing. I've always loved crafting growing up, and actually websites and website design. When the internet first came out, and I was in grade 6, I coded my own website using HTML code. Like I learned how to code and built my own website. And so I think it's funny as you get older, you kind of gravitate back to the things you just love to do as a kid. And as I was in the corporate world after I had my son, and realized that, going back to the corporate world and I wasn't going to be able to see him as much, what could I do to really, be at home, but still nurture that drive and creativity that I have. And out of that, really just my website was created, and I discovered that I have I think a craft for creating things that people really love and enjoy. And I've been doing this for over 10 years now. So I think, all of my followers that I've amassed over the years just have really helped me keep going. And yeah, that's kind of really my path and how I've gotten here is I just started creating and sharing, and one thing led to another. The craft books were the first books that I did, and then this book, the book of Would You Rather questions, was something that I came up with and went back to my publisher and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a book," and they loved it, and that's really how it all came about.
Yeah. You mentioned that there's some would you rather questions in your craft books as well. Did I hear that correctly?
On my website. So
On your
if you go.
website. Okay,
Mhm.
so now that you've written the ultimate book of 1001, you are going to be able to come up with more to add.
I know, right? I think so. I think I'll probably continue to post more on my website. Usually I do holiday themed ones on the website. So there's less holiday questions in the book. So if you want more holiday questions, you can find those on my website.
Nice, thank you. I mentioned that this is the first book of its kind that I've had on the podcast, which is awesome. So I often ask authors about advice for people who want to write, and this is a different kind of book. So what advice would you give for someone who wants to write a book that's maybe not your typical kids book?
Yeah, so lots of advice. I would say every book has a different way on how to get it published. So, for example, children's illustrated books. At one point I was interested in, well, maybe it would be fun to write an illustrated book. And I would say anything you want to do, if you want to learn a new skill or do a new business or, learn anything, find a Facebook group that is about that topic, because you will learn so much being in that group. And so I joined a kids literary book Facebook group, sorry, and learned all about that side of the publishing world. This was after I had published my craft books. And by publishing my craft books, that was the publisher just came to me because I had a following. So I built that following, and then they came to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a book?" But with an illustrated book, you could go down that path. You could try to build your own following. Same with this type of book, build your own following, and then potentially approach publishers or wait until they approach you. Or you can just go down the path of trying to create it and selling it, which is a lot harder. But I would say whatever it is you're interested in writing, try to find a Facebook group related to that genre and learn as much as you can from the current authors that are already doing it or the people who are aspiring to do it. And you will learn so much being in those groups. And for every genre, I think there's a different path that you have to take. So, for example, with craft books, a lot of the publishers want you to have a following already so that you have an audience to kind of market that book to. A book like this might be similar. I'm not really sure. I already had that kind of publisher relationship. But once you establish that and you do have a publisher, then I think the doors are open to more possibilities of what you can create.
Yeah. For your craft books, when you're showing the crafts, do you do those pictures? Do you have a photographer that you work with? How does that all work?
Yeah, so for my craft books, here, I'll just show you a few of them here. I've got them here. This was my first one I did, and they did offer to get a photographer, but the issue I had was, well, it's going to be impossible for me to, how do I prep all these crafts
Right.
and also, show this like the step-by-step images with a photographer in one day? Like logistically, I couldn't wrap my head around how that would be possible unless I
Yeah.
create, 5 different versions of every single craft. There's 60 crafts in this one. So logistically, it just didn't make sense. And so I thought, well, I'm going to have to do the photos myself. And I upgraded my camera equipment. I self-taught myself photography. And so everything was photographed by me in my first craft book. And then because I already had the skill, I was able to do it for my second one. So don't be afraid to teach yourself new skills. I taught myself photography, and now I'm working on improving my videography skills. And it's always fun to learn something new too. So
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that Kimberly tries new things, learns new things. All of us are, we're always learning, and it's great when we can find something that we enjoy and is helpful. There's something that we had a conversation after we stopped recording. I forgot to ask her what she was currently working on, if she was working on a new craft book, or if she, if there was a new book in the works. And she said that she's not currently working on a new craft book, but that she is going to start taking a screenwriting class. And so I just thought that was really interesting. She's continuing to learn new things, and screenwriting is very different from writing of other kinds. I've spoken with other authors, and they talk about the differences. And so it's just, learning something new, I think is always great. We're going to go to our third break. I have another Would You Rather question to take with you into that break. So let's see, this one is, would you rather live in a world without motorized vehicles, or without motorized transportation, or live in a world without cell phones? So would you rather live in a world without motorized transportation or in a world without cell phones? Think about that. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Kimberly McLeod. Before the break, I asked you if you would rather live in a world without motorized transportation or in a world without cell phones. And I think for me, it sounds like it's either or, right? So we would live without motorized transportation but still have cell phones, or we would live without cell phones but still have motorized transportation. I'm going to go with cell phones because motorized transportation, although do we still have, yeah, so I'm going to go, getting places is going to be a lot quicker. We might not have cell phones, but that doesn't mean we don't have email, right? We could still have the internet just because we don't have cell phones. We'll still have regular phones. And even if we need to communicate by snail mail, motorized transportation is going to make that a lot faster. I'm going to go with motorized transportation. No, I mean, I'd rather live in a world without cell phones. That's my choice. How about you? What did you decide? Let's go back to the conversation with Kimberly. When you take time to read, do you have favorite authors or genres that you personally read?
Yeah, I actually love a good sci-fi or thriller book or movie. And it's funny because I was thinking about this question, and the first author that came to mind was Dan Brown.
Mm,
And then later in the day, I actually saw he has a new book coming out in the fall. So I was like, that is so weird. You know how the universe does that? You think of
yeah,
something and then you see that something later
yeah.
on. So yeah, he's got a new book coming out, and so excited to read that. But I think, anything that keeps you on the edge of your seat, thrillers in general are kind of what I really personally love to read and watch.
Do your kids like to read?
They are bookworms.
Good. What are they currently
Yeah.
reading?
My daughter really likes the Babysitter Club graphic novels, and my son he loves mostly graphic novels too, but he also reads a lot of anime type books
Mm.
and gosh, I don't even remember, but a lot of the dragon, I think they're called wild dragons, or it's a bunch of dragon books. He's into more of the fantasy type stuff. Yeah.
I'm a little older than the I was a little older when the babysitter club books were popular, so I never got into them. And the fact that they're now graphic
Uh,
novels is crazy. Like they're just being introduced
yeah.
to whole new generations, which is cool.
Yeah, I actually was the age group that loved, I grew up on them. So it's funny to see my daughter now enjoying them, but I'm trying to get her into the non-graphic novel versions, but she just, I mean, I guess they love seeing the pictures and seeing the actual story come to life. So
Yeah.
she just really loves the graphic novel version.
She's still reading. I would,
Still counts, right?
exactly. That's the key. You have mentioned your website, so say the website again so people know, and then any social media that you are available on.
Yeah, so my website that you can find me on is thebestideasforkids.com. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and if you search the Best Ideas for Kids or at Best Ideas for Kids, I should pop up there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Kimberly, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to make sure you highlighted or covered during our time together?
The only other thing I would say is don't be afraid for the new authors or people aspiring authors. Don't be afraid to take a chance. There's a quote I just recently wrote down, and it was, if you don't swing, you'll never hit a home run. And I just, right now, personally in my life, I'm starting to look into other avenues, new opportunities, and trying new things. I always love to try new things. It's okay if it fails, but you'll never know if you'll succeed if you don't try.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I know it's morning for you, so thank you so much for being awake and talking to me. Full
You
sentences.
got,
I'm not great in the morning with full sentences, so good job. I really appreciate your time.
thank you. You got me up and on my toes early today, so I appreciate it.
Thank you again to Kimberly for joining me to talk about would you rather questions. If you are, I mean, if you have children, you might want nieces, nephews, if you work with children of different age groups, this is a really great resource because you do not have to come up with them on your own. Maybe you like coming up with them on your own. Maybe you're like me and you draw a complete blank whenever you're faced with coming up with these types of things. This is a great resource. I can see all kinds of uses for these questions. Road trips, family conversations, Thanksgiving. You could have them at Thanksgiving and find out from different generations what they're thinking. And then also you can check out the craft books, or you can go to her website and see some of those ideas that she has listed there. Lots of good resources here. So thank you so much to Kimberly for joining me to talk about that. I'm going to leave you with one final would you rather question as we start wrapping up this episode. And that is, would you rather walk to school wearing snowshoes or snorkeling fins? That one, I think neither one is great, but I'm going to go with snowshoes because at least they are solid. I've walked in snowshoes before, and it's not it's not the easiest thing. Certainly not if there's no snow, but snorkeling fins are floppy, right? And I just feel like I'm going to trip. I'm definitely going to trip in snorkeling fins. Probably going to trip in snowshoes too, but maybe I have a better chance of not tripping in the snowshoes. So that is the question that I leave you to ponder as we wrap things up. And I hope that you will join me for my next interview when I will be speaking with Melissa Connolly. We're going to be talking about What Was Lost. As you can see there next to me, this is a story told in dual timelines. Not current, it's around 2000. I'm not getting that date possibly correct, but and then in the 70s. So it is the main character as an adult, and then looking back on her teenage years and events that happened, and how those events are still affecting her life in her current existence, her job, her relationships, her especially her relationship with her daughter, but her relationship with the world around her as well. So please join me for that conversation with Melissa. In the meantime, if you are hopefully a fan of this podcast, please do me a couple of favors. Like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're either listening to or watching this episode on. Again, really helps the algorithm. Something else that helps the algorithm and gets the podcast out to more readers is to leave a positive review. That is incredibly helpful. Doesn't have to take a lot of your time, can be one sentence, but those positive reviews are super helpful on whatever platform, again, that you are either listening to or watching the episode on. It can be starred or it can be a written review. Either way, very much appreciated. And finally, if you're on social media, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you're on. The podcast is on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. So if you're on any of those, come find the podcast. Let me know what books you've read, what books you're reading, questions you have. You heard me say no, that was offline, but you've heard me say before, I'm nosy. So be nosy in return and ask me questions. I love hearing from you. I hope you're having a great week so far. I hope that you maybe take some time to ask somebody in your life your own would you rather question, or maybe even one of the ones that Kimberly mentioned when we were speaking, or one of the ones that I took from the book to go into break with. But ask somebody what they would rather do and see where that conversation takes you. Hope you're having a great week. As always, whatever this week is throwing at you, I hope it throws plenty of time to get yourself lost in a good book. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next time.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to